So you may remember like 6 months ago, I made a post asking for Q&A questions, and then I never ended up making that video. So I'm just gonna scroll through and answer those off the top of my head right now. I'll probably put some solves over this, but yeah, it's the middle of the night and I'm waiting for the next event to start at Euros because I think they're on the lunch break right now. So this is just looking for something to do, and I remembered that happened. So let's take a look. So the first question is from Connor Johnson, and it's, will this Q&A happen? The answer is yes. Connor asked another question, which was, are you planning on going to any North Island competitions other than Nats this year? Oh, by the way, I have like quite a bad sword throat right now, so you can probably tell that if my voice sounds a little weird, but yeah, I am. I went to the North Island Championships back in February, and that was a really good comp. And I'm also going to Oceanics at the end of the year, which was in Auckland. Christian, sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name, asked how to global sub 2. I got a lock in. So probably I would recommend to learn Alpha-E and ML-E, but I'm guessing you probably already know that if you're thinking about getting sub 2. And then also definitely 100% definitely one lock every solve. I can't overstate how useful that is. It helps you with your turning because you can plan out all your moves and not have any unexpected difficult finger tricks. And it also helps a ton with efficiency. And I feel like once you get consistent at one looking, it's only a matter of time and solves until you'll get sub 2. Yepeng Sun asks, any Alex set you recommend to learn beyond ML-E? First of all, I want to say you were super inspirational to me in like 2020 or 2019 sort of era. Like your example solves are really good. And yeah, just shout out to you, honestly. But my answer to this question is not really. To be perfectly honest, I don't know that many cases of the Alex sets beyond ML-E. That's definitely something I need to work on, but I feel like ML-E is definitely enough to get to a world-class level. And yeah. Sam Locke asks how to find a solution on scrambles where you can't make anything in one move. This is going to sound like a pretty silly answer, but the first thing I would look for is ways to make something in 2 moves. So that could be like sort of one of those bars where there's like a center and an edge of the same color, but then the edge is on the wrong side of the center and you can do 2 moves to make a bar, or just any other place where you can sort of set up something that's 1 move away from being a block by using another move. Also try and find things that accomplish multiple things at once. I think I've talked about this quite a lot in my last couple of examples of videos, but you basically want to sort of do a trigger that accomplishes 2 different tasks, or like pair up one edge while solving another center, that sort of stuff. Also, I would recommend sometimes looking at really obscure / long V solutions, because sometimes something that looks really bad will actually give you like a 3-move insert with no AUF, and then that ends up being a fairly solid solution, considering the scramble's really bad. So I think you'll just get better at that over time as you practice more and more one looking, but you'd be surprised how many absolutely diabolical scrambles have a decent thing you can do. Hugo Sailor asks, I still can't obtain high-level TPS on solves. What should I do to improve in that category? I would say, assuming this is about Pyraminx, I told someone else just now that one looking is helpful, and I would definitely reiterate that advice. So I guess it mostly comes down to one looking and finger tricks, right? So as the finger tricks you want to be able to do are U and U prime with both your right and left hands. So that's sort of the normal flick, and then also the push. You want to be doing those moves from the front rather than reaching your finger around to the back, because that's sort of an unnecessary movement and definitely takes longer. For your R prime, L prime, and L, you want to sort of be able to do it with your thumb in different positions. And you also want to, for R and L prime, do it in a way where like sort of you release your thumb as you put it upwards, so that when you finish the move, your thumb is still on the front. I hope that makes sense. Ezra Shear has a pretty good video that talks about some finger trick stuff, and that's one of the things in there. I would also say practice a lot of different tip combinations, because you can lose a lot of time from that. Also, I think one thing a lot of people may not realize is how much having an unsolved tip can subconsciously make your grip unstable. Personally, I feel like when there's no tips unsolved, my body turning is a lot better than when there's like an R tip. unsolved, even though you wouldn't think that that would really affect it that much. And also you want to be able to do B and B prime with both hands. Canyon Petite asks, does painting your nails make you solve Pyraminx faster? I actually think yes. I mean, personally, I just really like having my nails done. So if I have that, I'm going to feel a lot better. And then if I feel better, I'll probably solve faster. But yeah. Ephraim Lim asks, how do you overcome the pressure? And if you're demotivated, how do you pick yourself back up? So I guess I've kind of talked about my mindset quite a bit in my last video. But I would say you can take breaks if you really want to, as long as you don't go too long without practicing. You can definitely take some time off if that's needed. But also, I would say the really important thing is to have intrinsic motivation rather than extrinsic. So you want to be doing it because you really enjoy it and you're in love with the process, rather than getting validation from other people. And that's definitely something I struggled with. Like after I became the world record holder for a year, I really felt like people expected a lot from me with my results, and I sort of lost my love for it a little bit. But if you feel like you're really doing it for you, I would say that helps a lot. And yeah, picking yourself back up, I think you just need to remember you'll always have another chance, and as long as you don't quit, even if it takes years, you'll eventually surpass what you thought was possible. So just keep going and you'll get there. Milk Cubing asks, how many solutions do you usually one look? So this is a pretty interesting question, and I would say that it depends a lot on the scramble. If the scramble's quite easy, then there's only really one solution that you can do a lot of the time, or there might be other things that are just the same thing from a different angle. And if the scramble's really bad, similarly, there might only be like one or two ways that you can feasibly make a V in a reasonable number of moves. So that really limits your possibilities as well. But on like sort of a normal scramble, I feel like it could be like sort of 3 to 10. I mean, 10 is crazy, but like a lot of the time you can kind of see a solution isn't really worth one looking, even if you theoretically could look at it. So I feel like you're sort of subconsciously eliminating options. But yeah, I'm probably like 5. Hippo Cuba asks, how do you set up your Pyra, tensions, loops, etc.? I think I'm a very bad person to ask this question. A lot of my bad results or even my breaks have come down to just getting frustrated and not having a good Pyraminx. I think everyone that mains this event knows the hardware options aren't too great. But I would say in terms of lube, on YLMs, they're usually pretty dead these days. So you want a fast lube. I quite like Luna from Speedy Shop. And for Waylongs, they're usually too fast. And for most of my cubes in general, I just really like weight 5. So I'm a big advocate of weight 5, and I like putting that my Waylongs. Tensions, I feel like I try to go as tight as possible without it kind of having really bad corner cutting or just becoming like a little bit uncomfortably tight. So I think you kind of have that Goldilocks zone of tensions that aren't completely locky or completely crazy with how loose they are. So I would just go on like the slightly tighter end of that range. But I actually really hate tensioning Pyraminxes. It's literally impossible to get them even, and you're always just like fiddling with this side, fiddling with that side. So I just avoid it like the plague, and try to get used to whatever the Pyraminx is in its current state. And etc. That's definitely a worthwhile thing to ask, because most Pyraminxes are really bad out of the box. People that are much smarter when it comes to cubing hardware than I am have come up with a whole bunch of different mods for the different Pyraminxes out there. So I think if you can look on YouTube or just kind of find out what the general consensus about how to set up a cube is, you'll probably get a pretty good sense of what to do. Daniel Partridge asks, how do I get more consistent tips? I always drop on them in +2. And to this, I would say that is very relatable. I guess you just need to really experiment a lot with different ways of doing it, and also really get into the nitty-gritty of how different starting moves, like combinations of like the first 3 moves of the solve, and then also maybe the last 3 moves of the solve, how those can sort of pair up nicely with different combinations of tips that you might have at that point. You want to be able to do like 4 tips at the start. You want to be able to do like U, L, and R at the start. That's definitely a tricky question, but these days my main focus in sessions is honestly like doing the tips well. So I'm with you. Maidu Chor, I'm really sorry if I mispronounce your name, asks, how can I practice one looking for Pyraminx, and how can I do that without giving up during inspection? So I would say this is probably not going to be something you want to hear given the second part of that question, but doing unlimited inspection time is really useful. When I was first learning to one look, sometimes I would have to inspect for like a couple of minutes to get it, and also I would get like a bunch of DNFs that were off by a 2 flip and that kind of thing. But I think you want to be really efficient because having good V solutions definitely helps you a lot. Also on Pyraminx, you can find a lot of common patterns with like, this 3-move trigger kind of affects the edges this way. So you can kind of over time slowly build up more and more complicated shortcuts. So for example, like R, B, R prime. I probably should have not just done solves for this video so I could demonstrate this, but R, B, R prime and L prime, B prime, L. There's this sticker on the bottom face that always goes to the front on the top in a certain way when you do that, and that's just an example of like how a common series of moves that happens in a V, you can do a shortcut rather than tracing every single piece through every single move. Elijah Moore asks, how do I ask good questions when YouTubers ask me for cool questions? I actually kind of relate to this, to be honest. Like a lot of the time, my favorite YouTuber or whatever will be like, I'm going to do a Q&A soon, and I really want to ask a good question so I can be featured in the video. So yeah, I relate to that. Elias EU asks, if you had to trust one of the following cubes to main for a year, what would you choose? 1, Demon YLM. 2, one of those ridiculously fast Waylongs. So to get everyone up to speed, the Demon YLM is a Yushinil Magic that I got all my records on back in like 2023, and it was already like kind of lucky at that point. But basically it died around late 2023, and I continued to use it in competition because I couldn't get another Pyraminx that I liked as much as what that one was like in its heyday. And also for some reason it had a really strange quality of being exactly the same in competition as it is at home, rather than some other Pyraminxes that would feel good at home but then wouldn't be as reliable in comp. So I've used that a lot. I think I've even used it this year. I used it at Worlds last year. I've used it in some of my national champion averages, all since it died. But at this point, it's really beyond saving, and if I use it, I'm not going to get better than high 1. And number 2, one of the ridiculously fast Waylongs. So at Nats last year, I was giving Elias some of my cubes, and I had these Waylongs that were just an absolute joke. Like you couldn't not overshoot on them. But I'm pretty sure I used it at Nationals, which was pretty funny. And again, they're sort of good at home, but it's just way too fast. I'll probably say the Demon YLM, honestly, because I know what to expect from it. I can get consistent results. I'm not going to get PR, but I know how to like safety with it, and I've definitely mained it for a year before after it got bad. SKY Speed Cubing asked, how do you find a genius V? So I guess thank you for the compliment if you think some of my Vs are genius. It kind of ties into some of the things I've been saying over the course of this video, where pretty much just over time, your brain will start to recognize more and more patterns that come up with like how some of the pieces connect to each other. And yeah, just like incrementally a certain like, say 3-move V, suddenly you can do subconsciously, then you can do a 4-move V subconsciously, and the more you can kind of subconsciously automate certain like subsets of a V, the more you can use like the cognitive active part of your brain that you're thinking with to think about a more and more complicated thing. Potato Cubed 14 asks, have you ever sat in a Pyraminx before? And this is kind of a philosophical question, I feel like, because I might be vastly uneducated on this topic, but I feel like the edge of the universe is sort of a very existential question. It's like, there can't really be a wall, because then it's like that doesn't make sense. And I think it's sort of like if you keep going for long enough, then you accidentally end up looping back around to somewhere that you've already been. So you could probably conceptualize the universe as being one massive Pyraminx, and we're all inside it. And I'm sitting down right now, so I guess I'm doing it right now. So a question about tips, I think I've kind of already answered that. Opal V2 asks, do you think Pyraminx, and by that matter 2x2 and 3x3 also, are ruined for cubers like me by all the little Chinese kids? This is a crazy question, not gonna lie. I feel like the great thing about cubing is like, no matter what country you're from or no matter what age you are, like it's exactly the same for everyone. And it's like a fast time is a fast time. So no, I think people like in Pyraminx, Lincoln, and then obviously in 3x3, all of the really fast Chinese solvers have just pushed the events to new limits, and I think everyone can learn from them. And it's just super exciting to see cubing get to the next level, no matter what. So I definitely don't think so. Yeah. Triangles Cube asks how to sub 9 OH. So I would say use Rue. Probably most people agree that it's better than CFOP for one-handed. And I've definitely found that. I average like 12 or 13 with CFOP and sub 9 with Rue. And yeah, I guess you want to learn like all of the really good finger tricks. A lot of the finger tricks for Rue seem really difficult at first, and it takes ages to get good at them. But it really pays off once it starts to work in your solves. And I suppose you also need to be pretty good at two-handed. Actually, I think Keon has a really good video of like how to get good at one-handed in 5 steps or something like that. So I guess I would direct you to that. Anyway, thank you for watching. Maybe I'll do another Q&A in the future and take less than half a year to actually make the video, but this has been fun, and I'm pretty sure 5x5 finals is starting